just share some insights, ultimately my own opinions, my own experiences, for essential tools for energy workers, especially those who are more emotionally raw, like transmuters, people who've had very intense situations play out in their life, and so there's a lot of emotional weight and density moving through their emotional bodies. And as these energy workers, you are the ones transmuting very heavy, very dense energy work for the collective around you, oftentimes. So while I do these, I'm also going to be channeling Reiki. So I'm going to play the bowls, and really the goal here, similar to the sound baths and the meditations, is just lean into it, just relax. This is a message not just to your mind and to your ears, but to your heart and to your soul. And so it's really important for me, as I share this, where you can just relax into the energy and just take it in as it comes, without having to focus so hard on hearing every word. Let it flow through as it will. So if you consent to me connecting to your energy, I will be channeling Reiki through this. You just need to say yes, whether out loud, to yourself, it doesn't matter, but the intention to connect, and then it'll work through that. So let's get started. Okay. Now, if you wanted to connect with Reiki, I am channeling the energy now, and I'm going to speak as I do so and play. So, the first tool for the energy worker is a journal to work through subconscious beliefs. So this was actually something I started doing as a way to heal childhood trauma. I'm a strong believer that not everyone, because I can't speak for everybody's lives, of course, but most people who are on the path of spiritual work, especially as transmuters, have a tendency to, sorry, let me move the phone a little bit closer so you can hear me clearly, have a tendency to have experienced less than ideal conditions in their lives, oftentimes playing out as childhood trauma. And I started reading this one book that got me really thinking about, it was called CPSD From Surviving to Thriving, I believe. It really got me thinking about subconscious beliefs that I held, and I started to realize that I have a tendency to disassociate a lot by completely disconnecting from my mind, because my mind was acting as an enemy. And instead of challenging the enemy, I would just try to disassociate myself. So one day I decided to start writing down all the beliefs that I held. It would be things like, you're very lazy, you don't do anything, you are a burden to other people, whatever the subconscious, or even not even subconscious, but just the thoughts that I carried every time that I'd have a heavy thought. What I would do is I would write this thought down for exactly what it was, no matter how awful and how hurtful it was. I'd write it down, and then I'd challenge it in another page. It would be almost like combating that. So if I said, I'm so lazy, and let's say this was during a point where I actually was very sick, and I would be bedridden for like literally weeks at a time. But I would read every day. I would maintain my journaling every day. I was trying my best for where I was. And so I wrote that. And I would tell myself, you're not lazy, you're just experiencing a lot and you're moving through it the best you can. And as I did this, I realized that it was genuinely helping to heal those mindsets, because I could visually see each and every time, oh, I'm having this thought again. I need to remind myself, you're not lazy. You're actually doing the best you can with where you are in this moment. And you fast forward, not even a year later, I became significantly more productive. Even when I was sick, I was still sick. I was still struggling with my health. It actually got worse, but I became more productive, and I started building something that 4 years later now has actually brought abundance into my life, and I'm still building that thing. And it brought me into alignment because I was connecting more to my truth from an objective standpoint outside of that critical ear, because it's so easy to get sucked into that critical ear. So with the journal, as an energy worker, I think it's really important when you start finding yourself experiencing these loops. So this could be karmic patterns you're finding yourselves in, like for example, and I bring this example up a lot, but if you identify yourself as an empath who attracts narcissists, literally write it down. I am an empath who attracts narcissists. The people I attract use me. The people, whatever, write it down. And you're writing it as your ego when you're doing this. This is your ego speaking. Then literally flip to the next page and look at it from a higher perspective. What would your higher self be saying about this? No, you don't attract narcissists. You're being faced with a situation that challenges you to step into your power, and you keep being given that opportunity to step into that position. You know, that's obviously a generalization, but that's the gist of what I'm saying, where you can, it's not just about thought patterns that are, you know, unhealthy and harmful. It can also be about things like situations that you continually find yourself looping through. It could be about places where you feel weird in them. Like, let's say you go into work, you're like, man, this was an experience I had. Man, I feel so heavy here. And it was always when the store manager was there, and I just always felt so heavy. The energy felt like black goo. You'd write that down. I feel like I'm being suffocated with black goo when I work at this job, and then looking at it from a higher perspective. This is challenging me to learn to clear my energy and really focus on what my boundaries are. That could mean literally quitting your job and finding something that's more aligned. That could be setting up energetic boundaries that work for you and really trying and tapping into new things to see what does work. And it can look like so many things, but the point here is it's really about coming to a place where you're exploring your subconscious. You're really exploring the vastness of how these experiences affect you and the different perspectives of them. Because let's say with something like, let's say with the empath thing, if you resonated with that, there's a level of truth of, yeah, you are being victimized and it's not okay, and someone should not be treating you like that. But on the other side of it, it's an opportunity for you to learn your worth. What are you going to accept from another person, and where are you going to start drawing the lines? because as empaths, and a lot of people identify themselves as empaths, but they don't have proper boundaries, because a lot of times people who consider themselves empaths do have that childhood trauma, this conditioning that they are raised with that teaches them to self-sacrifice and not really pay attention to their needs the way other people do. And that you could even find through this journaling process, sometimes you might even label people with this title because you're so much more willing to do things for people that you don't realize that it might actually be where you're not having healthy boundaries yourself with how much you should be giving, realistically. So it's really just it's a journey of shadow work. It's really about you exploring the realm of your subconscious and how it affects you and how it shows up in thoughts and in patterns and in speech and in vibes and energy, and really working through and navigating that in a way where you're able to almost become accustomed to communicating ego to higher self. It's like you start to get used to doing that because this is what you're doing while you're writing. I really feel like this is an important tool because so often it's easy to fall into these loops, and I'm sure you've seen it. There's people who go their whole lives continuing the same patterns with different people, or even often, in my opinion, even more sad, where the same people are repeating the same patterns together literally for the rest of their lives. And as an energy worker, you are kind of experiencing a lot of rapid shifts constantly. Things are always changing because you're not meant to be experiencing the same patterns. You're meant to be moving through them. You're meant to be moving through them so that you can clear them out for the collective, not just for yourself, for your family, for your friends, your soul group. So it's really important to have a way to really connect with yourself where you're able to hold both perspectives, because both are valid. Both are valid, and both are a lot of times true. You know, when people say, oh, you shouldn't have a victim mentality, that doesn't mean you're not a victim. You absolutely could have been victimized and bad things happen. And there's nothing wrong or invalid about admitting that. But a victim mentality is going to keep you in a state where you're not being able to really step into your power. And so it's really being able to hold both perspectives with equal worth, and then healing the one that comes from the ego, because that's all it's about. It's not about that side's incorrect, that side's wrong. It's about this side needs healing. And as I heal this side, as I heal the perspective of the ego, it automatically balances into that higher perspective. It automatically moves towards that, because that is the healed version of this message that you're giving to yourself. So I made this the first and foremost tool for the energy worker, because in my opinion, this is being able to really face and navigate the hardest truths and the hardest loops and frustrations and fears that you carry. Being able to actually admit them to yourself and address them and write them out, there's something very powerful about that. And I know not everybody will agree with writing those things because they don't want to invite that energy in. And to each their own beliefs, this is what's worked for me. But I do find a lot of power in really holding space for it to say, you know what, this is something I'm currently looping through, and I'm going to acknowledge it with face value right now. And to be able to do that, and then to challenge it, to talk back at it and say, you know what, that's not the only truth I'm going to hold on to. I just find that this is a very powerful way to work through very heavy, very scary, a lot of times, thoughts. We sometimes get into some pretty dark, pretty messed up places. And I think it's important to have something to really help us stay grounded that sees us in those places. Because if we're always trying to run away or focus somewhere else, not actually paying attention and addressing these things that keep coming back up because they're stored in our subconscious, it's just a form of disassociating and, in my opinion, spiritual bypassing. Because I see a lot of times people will have loops that they go through, and really, instead of questioning and trying to understand where is this coming from and how can I challenge it within myself, people will try to avoid it, and then focus more on their meditations, their breath work, Reiki, healing, to move away from those things. But then they come back because they're not actually working through it. They're not actually getting to the root of it and shifting their mind. They're not truly shifting away from it. It's still stored there in their energy until they address it fully. And that's where the spiritual bypassing is done. That's how it's done. And so I really think it's important, I feel like it's very important to actually address these things for what they are instead of running away from them, or trying to focus on something else, because if it keeps coming back up, it's not just momentary, and there is a reason. And a lot of times is because maybe some thought behind it or some belief behind it was taught to you. I recently realized in counseling almost a week ago, actually, and it's something I'm shocked that I never really thought about, because I have seen people talk about this before, where I have a tendency to feel guilty for not doing more for people than what's expected. I feel guilty not literally giving my things away and taking the shirt off my back to give to someone else who might not even appreciate it, let alone, but in general. And I realized it was because my mom would literally, she taught me from a young age that I lived to serve her. And if I didn't do that, I was not doing my duty as her child, because she birthed me. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this, but I served her. I was her servant, to put it very bluntly. So I grew up with this belief that I owe people my time, my energy, my things, when I don't. And this is a long-held belief that's given me so much guilt. And now that I can recognize where it's coming from, I can challenge it when I face it and remind myself, no one's expecting this of me. And even if they are, that's not a healthy boundary. I deserve to honor my boundaries, and really being able to challenge that every time. It's not easy. It's definitely not fun, but it's important. Anyways, that is all I wanted to say for this message. I'm going to play some more of the sound bowls. Take it in. If you consent to the Reiki, just take it in. And just breathe. Really trying to clear out unwanted and unproductive energy from your space. If it doesn't hold space in truth, it doesn't need to be within you. And I intend this as a support to help you navigate the journey of releasing these loops, releasing these patterns, releasing this karmic energy that you found yourself cycling in, just letting it go. Finding the peace within to come to a place of closure and self-acceptance. Closure in self-acceptance. You can't see it, but I'm using my Reiki board right now. I might post a picture of it, but I find that these sound bowls are a great way to channel as well the Reiki energy, as they're each associated with a different chakra. This one is the root, sacral, solar plexus. Let's really tap into this one. Align you back to your sense of power within. True power. The power that resides outside of the experience of the ego. The one that connects you back to your authenticity. And we move to the throat. The space that holds your truest expression, so that you can really tap into your higher wisdom and channel forth the most encouraging messages that you can to support yourself while you work through some of these challenges and loops. To express in a place of love and honest reflection. Because reflection is very important on this journey. And really centering it in the heart space, the heart chakra. Finding balance within your higher self and your physical self, your ego self. Because a balance between both is key and important to living on this earth and experiencing this life. You do not have to be in your higher self 100%. It's about the balance, because you are here and you are experiencing life and expansion and consciousness, individual consciousness, and there is a beauty and a blessing in that as well. So really finding this space within your heart to channel the wisdom through and to feel it, because being able to feel that wisdom from your higher self as you write it out, and even if you don't necessarily believe it all the time, feeling it in your heart, because that's how it starts. You know in your heart when something's resonating the truth to you. You know when it's bringing you peace, and you know when it's taking you out of it. You are a beautiful being, and you are a powerful one. And you deserve peace of mind. And I hope that this tool offers you a way to come to that space, to rediscover that space, to find clarity within. You're a divine being. And whether or not you see it now, you carry so much wisdom